Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started for the last engineering committee of 2020. Getting close to the end of 2020, thank goodness. And kind of a weird year in general. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Is there any public comment on items not on the agenda? I'm assuming everybody can hear me okay through the mask.
I think you're very clear.
Yeah, very fine.
Okay. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and get started with item number 1, which is the minutes. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes?
I'm here filling in,
Yeah.
so I can't vote on to approve the minutes.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Approved it, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
There's nothing to them, sure.
So we'll go ahead and approve the minutes. We'll go ahead and close item number 1, and we'll move on to item number 2, which is the Centennial Water Supply Project update. So I'll go ahead and run through the staff report here, and if you have any questions, you can ask me. Very similar to the last one that we did in September. There's been no work done, both for the CEQA document as well as design efforts. Water rights, again, we haven't done anything with regards to that other than we've updated the water board quarterly as we're supposed to under the requirements of the application. The one item that was added to the website was the September quarterly report for the State Water Resource Control Board. So, AB 52 consultation, it's been quiet. COVID's really got things kind of messed up. So we have not been reaching out to the tribe in the last few months because they are kind of on a lockdown mode in terms of accessibility and willing to meet, et cetera. So we're kind of waiting until that to clean out, and we can start working with them again. Of course, if they want to open up dialogue with us at any time, we'd be happy to do that. All property acquisitions has been placed on hold with board's request, and we have no public meetings scheduled. The next quarterly update will be March. That'll be the first quarter of 2021. And so we'll get into the budgetary impacts. So as of November 23rd, we've expended $13,037. So if you go through and we start to go through these tables here, you'll see that from January through August, we had a little over $18,000. September through November, we've actually reduced the amount, and that was because those costs were for work related to 2019, and so finance made some corrections to that, and that's why that's a negative number of the $5435. So.
This notes that on the legal, from September to November, there was a $234 legal charge.
Mm-hmm.
That's new. We haven't had any all year. Is it? You know what that was for?
I don't off the top of my head, but I can get that information and find out. It may be something related to water rights or something to that effect.
Well, Doug, I was confused about that because then underneath there, the asterisk that staff and legal costs are not included in totals as they are accounted for elsewhere in the budget. So,
yeah.
But then you have a line item $32,000 for staff. So I'm thinking.
So we wanted to be able to show that the amount of staff and legal time that are being consumed for this project, but they don't come out of the budget for Centennial for staff and legal because they're budgeted elsewhere in our budget.
Out of the water department.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they come out elsewhere.
This small little report.
Oh, okay.
This isn't district-wide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
right.
thank you.
Right.
So we just want to be able to identify that there is some stuff going on, but that it doesn't specifically impact how much we spent against the budget for this year.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That clarifies
Yeah,
that.
this isn't an accounting.
You can see why that would be confusing.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to.
Because you say, here it is, and here it isn't.
Yeah, right.
It's not a general
They add up.
It's the
accounting
same
practice.
document,
The
yeah.
columns don't add up. So you can see that for September through November, we had about $5,900 in staff time. Again, most of that is related to the property management component of it, having our guys out there doing work, whether it's tree trimming, some survey work, et cetera. So the majority, if not most all of that, is related to the property management side of it, because we're not doing much of anything internally otherwise, other than preparing for this report. So finance will have to spend a little time, et cetera. So So the next, table down, you'll see that's the property expenses and revenue. We had been asked before to take these out to show them, so that's what you see here. Basically September through November, which again is that last time frame since we last had our, quarterly update. Expenses have been a little over 12,000 and revenues has been about a little over 62,000. So for the year, you can see we spent about $90,000 for expenses, and we've received about $191,000 in revenue. So overall, we have a net positive of about $100,000 with regards to the properties that we have out there.
Can I, make a comment about this?
Yes.
Typically, when you're showing a negative or a loss, you put that in parens. And you don't show a positive or a gain in parens. So when I looked at this, I thought, there's a $100,000 loss. I mean, that's sort of an accounting thing. But I would maybe ask you to check with Marvin or something, but that's really confusing because it looks like there's, you know, it doesn't add up to generally how people look at when they look at an accounting thing. It's like negative is in parens.
Yeah, so what we don't want to do though is put negative, I mean, we can put the expenses in parentheses, which just means the expenses are a negative number and
That's
the
correct.
revenues are positive.
That would be the correct way to do it.
We can do that, if you'd like.
But you can see, do you agree, Laura?
No, I asked that before, and they said this is an expense report, and it's
Yeah.
that's what they said.
How
It's confusing though, to have
I'll
it,
double check with Marvin.
yeah, because it looks like, oh, we have a $100,000 negative, which actually isn't true. We have a $100,000 positive.
You're absolutely right. It goes against all general accounting practices.
Yes, it does.
It's just, however, the purpose of this report, as you see from the asterisk that you just brought up, is not, this is culminating a few different, we're bringing information from a few different places, and this report was to show that in light of the expenses, or in light of the project, I mean, I get it. It is.
It's confusing. It should not read like that.
No, I think the difficulty is all the other expenses up top. We're either gonna have to show all those as parentheses, the whole report in parentheses.
No, you don't have to show them, all of them in parentheses. You just say, this is our list of expenses, and then when you come down here.
No, but you look at the one above, our expenses in consulting up on top, right?
Yeah.
And your comment, that should be a parentheses.
All of it should be a parentheses.
They all should.
We should all be
because
the
they're expenses against revenue.
Okay.
Or
okay.
typically, you would not, you would have an expense table, so then they wouldn't have to be parent, all of the expenses. I know this is kind of picking in the weeds, but, it is, when I first looked at this, it looked very confusing to me. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and the parentheses, it's a negative on a negative report makes it a positive.
Yeah, I know, it's double negative. Okay, thank you.
So we'll get with Marvin, and we'll get this cleaned up in terms of, makes sense, and if he has a specific reason why we should show it that way, then we can.
Yeah, then it'll be interesting to know.
Yeah, okay, no problem.
Thank you.
So then, what you see, it's basically then the bottom one that has any adjustments that were done. So for, 2019, if you had looked back on the last, was that September meeting, that number for expenses of 142 was actually a little less, it was in the 130-something. That's because of that change in moving that monies up above that we showed of the 5235 going back to 2019. So it increased the 2019 number just slightly by that amount. And then we've reduced the 2020 number in expenses to reflect what you see there. So again, overall, of the $500,000 budget, we've spent $13,000, and overall with the property revenue and expenses, we've netted a positive of $100,000. And so we are still over the $500,000. So in effect, we have not dipped yet into the $500,000 budget. That's what that's trying to show. There is one other cost that will be coming up, just not here yet, and that's for the water rights. Which up on the first line, I was going to make that comment. I apologize. Water right fees is showing nothing across the board for this year. So we are going to be sending a check, if it hasn't already gone out, it's going to be going out shortly.
I remember there was a
This is-
substantial charge, and then we, appealed it, and those charges were reduced. Chip did or something. Is that correct?
Dustin did.
yeah, I don't know
Or
if that's,
Dustin did,
I don't know if
somebody,
that's
right,
for
right here.
this particular one or not.
This is for rates, water rights in general. Not sure if this specifically for this one.
Yeah, so we have annual fees of,
I see.
for this year, be $20,675 for, our application that's pending within the State Water Resource Control. Last year it was $20,675. Last year was 19,000 and something. So it's going up a little bit every year. So, any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a few, if you'll
Yeah,
indulge me,
sure.
being
Absolutely.
a sit-in member of the engineering committee for a minute.
Absolutely.
Let's see. So I guess the first thing is on the final box here. You got 2019 and 2020, and you've got essentially net revenues or net losses, which in this case, these are net budget numbers that were not expended. Is that correct? Is that a correct way to say that? So the budget was $1,775,000. We spent $1,042,000.
They
We
spent
received $142,000. Okay, yeah. We received $136,000 in revenue, which meant that the $1,768,000 is what was remaining of the budget.
Correct.
Okay. And then in 2020, I can see the same thing.
Yep.
So then the question then is, what becomes of those funds that were unexpended? Do those go into a reserve? Goes back into reserves to then be reallocated, say, in the 2022 budget? Where do they go?
Yeah,
They don't just sit there, right?
They're unallocated and they would go back into reserves.
They would go back into
Into
reserves.
water reserves.
Into water or hydro or?
Wouldn't be hydro.
Not
It
hydro.
would be water.
It would be water. Okay. So somewhere along the line, we should see these numbers reflected in the reserve.
Is money being going into them?
Yeah, it should show an increase.
Yeah.
Is
I
that
believe that's the
correct?
case. We can find out with Marvin how
Double check that.
this particular, account is
Yeah, where you
managed
put
that way.
that, what reserve you put
That
that
should be the
into.
way it works.
Yeah, because I was looking at the CAFR that's gonna, not the CAFR, the budget to actual that's gonna be heard tomorrow, and I don't think, but it would be helpful to see what's the status of the reserve, what is the status of reserves, or does the reserve stay exactly the same all year long until the end of the year? When do these
When they make
reconcile?
changes.
Does the reserve status change
Sure it does.
throughout the year?
Yeah.
So, it seems like on the budget to actual, it'd be helpful to see how the reserves are,
We can ask that.
We can talk about, we can ask about that.
tomorrow.
Sure.
yeah.
So Doug, I have another couple of questions
Sure.
back on the front side. So, in the paragraph talking about water rights, it says, will begin engaging discussions with protesters upon release of the DEIR. So my question was, what do you anticipate the time frame is for a DEIR, and is that in process?
So that is something we've been working on, and then when the board requested that we slow down on this project and
Right.
work on the raw water master plan originally.
Right.
So all that work's basically getting put on hold at this point,
Okay.
which is why you're only seeing $13,000
Yeah,
being spent
okay.
in this year. So we won't do anything until we get through that planning for water process, et cetera, and then the board would tell us at that point that they want us to ramp back up or not. At that point, we would start to do that.
Okay. That's kind of what I thought, but it just made it sound like you're gonna begin engaging.
Yeah, that's typically when you do it, right? That's when we get that document
Yeah.
out, then we'll start to reach out to folks. We had already been engaged with South Sutter a little bit, but, the other ones, it was basically once that document comes
Okay.
out and the impacts are identified is when you start to talk with folks about the protest.
And then on the AB 52 consultation,
Yep.
your wording is continuing tribal consultation. When was the last time you actually had a tribal
In
consultation?
January
January of last
this
year.
year.
So you really,
It's ongoing until it's closed, so when the
is that a
consultation
technical
is,
term?
correct.
Okay.
So it's an ongoing until consultation has been completed, and
Mhm.
that's either with, we're in agreement, and then the tribes will close the consultation, or we're not in agreement, at which time we move
Okay.
forward with that process but yeah, it's ongoing until
And then, I have just one other question. I was searching through, and as you all know, and members of the public know, Nancy Weber, former director sitting in my seat, gifted me with boxes and boxes and boxes of historical data. And so I periodically go through them, and I'm not sure that's where I got this, but I have a map of, this goes to property acquisitions. Excuse me. And I wanted to give it to you and ask that you check this for, first of all, for accuracy, and if there's an update. It's actually a really, really good map. And, because I get asked all the time, well, how much, where is the land that NID owns, and who owns what, and blah, 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 blah. And I thought, well, this would be really cool to give out to people, but I don't want to give them something that is not accurate. And so, is that a possibility? So I made a bunch of copies of it.
So, yeah, I need to see what that, is it showing whether it's public parcels, private parcels, or
Yeah, it
state lands,
delineates
that kind of
BLM,
thing?
NID, PG&E, private, state, and there's some unknown.
She probably got that from us, but I can take a look at it and see
It'd be
if that's
helpful if we
accurate.
published a map for that. We've asked for it before, but it's.
Well,
one
this
on the
would be an
website.
ideal one
Yeah,
if,
map
in
out.
fact, we can determine that it's accurate.
Yeah, we have that information already in our GIS on which is,
I figured it
we've had
lived
maps,
somewhere.
we've done maps internally before showing the different, whether it's state lands, BLM,
Right.
or NID or public. And
But, I still get
we can do that.
requests, and I was tempted to hand this out, and I thought, I'm not gonna do that until I can verify that it is
That's a good point.
accurate.
It's a good idea. Why don't we take a look at it? And
Yeah, so I made several copies. I don't know if you wanna look at one, but, and then for members of the public who may be listening, hopefully we can get this updated.
Yeah, the maps are already created, so it shouldn't take much.
And then I tried to blow it up, and,
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Depending on the year.
I get the gist of the intent,
yeah.
to show the different types of properties.
Well, yeah, and how they relate to the inundation zone and all of that kind of stuff. I get calls from property owners, and
Sure.
it's a real estate thing. It's just a huge, big.
And in special district rules, we're supposed to be reviewing all of our properties once a year to confirm that they're accurate. And I've never seen a list of
We are?
NID owned properties.
Accurate in what?
Accurate for what?
I mean, they're still needed and they're not surplus, we're supposed to review them to determine
What rule?
we're utilizing.
What rule is,
I'll get you the code. It's in the water code or public resources code or irrigation district code or,
that
in
we're
one of our
utilizing in a property?
yeah, we're supposed to publish.
So every
the
year,
property.
we submit information to the counties and all that.
Oh, you do? We do.
For sure. So, I'd be happy to see what you have, and then we can juxtapose
Well, maybe
it
you
with
could share with what you
what-
have. I mean, you
what
have a list of all the
options we're
properties and, if you, put it on the agenda and have a little discussion on all the properties we own.
That's district-wide now you're talking, right?
all the
I'm
properties.
talking district.
All the
Okay.
properties NID owns are ownership.
Yeah, doesn't the audit have
We talked about-
I kind of remembered that they did.
We talk about approximately 10,000 acres that the NID owns.
Right, that's what I recall,
Right.
it was 10,000 or so.
Yeah, that's about what it is. I mean, we'd be happy to talk
Yeah,
about that.
I'll get that,
Yeah, it sounds like maybe we're supposed to be talking about whether we still need a specific property.
Well, yeah, it's like, is it surplus, do we need it anymore, do we not need it
Right.
anymore? If we don't need it,
Typically, it would be yes, unless we
if
specifically
it's a water
no
test-
longer have a reason to not want it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all I have, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, the map was just kind of the main.
Yeah. All right, we'll work on that.
Thanks.
Any other,
No, I'm good.
is there any, public comment on this item? You wanna raise your hand? Is it star 9? Is that what it is, star 6?
Star 9.
Star 9? Oh. Yeah, go ahead, Ashley. You can unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Good morning. This is Ashley Overhouse with Circle. I just wanted to check in and remind you, one, that I'm alive. I haven't given public comment in a while, but also two, to thank you. This committee is really, really important. I really appreciate all the updates that you give, including the quarterly centennial updates. I really appreciate the vibrant discussion this morning and any additional effort that you put into continually updating the public about this project. It increases transparency and engagement, and I really appreciate it. So on behalf of Circle, I just wanted to thank you, especially during this difficult year and difficult time as you're all sitting there in masks and we're still in the worst of this pandemic. I just really appreciate all your hard work. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. We'll go ahead and close item 2 and move on to item 3, which is the Engineering and Hydroelectric Department project status list. So my plan today was to highlight some projects that have changed since our last update versus going through each one line by line. If you have a specific question, be happy to answer that. Otherwise, I was just kind of go through that process. Otherwise, if I'm not necessarily talking about it, it just means that there hasn't been really any change to that particular project since the November date. Okay, so the first one is on page 1, first item actually, which is the Lister Avenue Country Club Terrace. They do now have a paving contractor under contract. They'll be signing that contract, I believe, today. So that project will be wrapping up when they finish with that paving. That was all work done by maintenance folks. So that project will be finished up and will be taken off the list. So we should not be on the list there for the next update. So the next one that we've had any changes to would actually be down in the raw water system improvements, which is item 05, which is the bottom group of projects on the first page. First one is Doty North. So as you're aware, the board awarded the contract. The contractor has started to mobilize. We've got all our final easements from the property owner. So we are having our pre-con and tailgate training tomorrow afternoon for part of our CEQA requirements for the mitigation and monitoring program. We have to have the tailgate party for both cultural resource sensitivity as well as the bio. And then the contractor will hit the ground running. The pipe has been delivered. It is on site, the pre-ordered pipe. So we want to hit the ground and get that going because we want to get our pipe supports that are in lower areas of that location to be completed before Mother Nature does decide to finally rain, hopefully. We want her to rain, but maybe a couple more weeks would be good if she doesn't. So we're underway. So starting next week, construction will be rolling, and we'll be trying to get it in and out of there as fast as we can. So.
And did the pipe arrive?
The pipe did arrive. It arrived last week. Last Thursday, I believe.
It's in the yard here.
Actually, it was delivered down there. It was originally scheduled to be delivered to the Plaster Yard, but because we had the contractor already on board, they worked with the delivery folks and actually had it delivered to the site. So we don't have to handle it more than once.
Nice.
So, yeah, so that pipe is out there. Okay, the next one would be the South Yuba Canal.
I have a quick question about Santini.
Yeah.
Does this open up capacity for projects on moratorium?
Yes.
Do we know about how many or?
I don't know. I don't know the number, but there is a moratorium because of the Santini siphon.
Okay.
Yep.
And the siphon wasn't actually failing. It was a scheduled to increase capacity?
So it's the increased capacity plus of the age of the facility, et cetera.
Okay.
Yeah. And the entrance to it, the rack and location and stuff. So it was.
And so are the property owners downstream or further down, are they been notified that this is
I don't know when
going to be able to become customers?
Yeah, I don't know when operations releases that. Typically, I think on moratoriums, I believe they get put on a list. And so once water is available, then we would contact them.
If I recall correctly, and I don't know specifically, I can't recall what Chip was saying, but I think we're at the point where there's roughly 20 or so folks between Doty and Santini. I think there's about 20 or so that have been on this moratorium list for quite some time.
Mhm.
Typically what we see is once those moratoriums start to come off, then we see other people start inquiring as well.
But I believe we notify the folks that are on our list that
Hopefully
water
everybody
is
that has
available.
potential access to it
Yeah.
would be notified.
Yeah, I don't know about the overall constituents versus.
So it was sized to let everybody along that line of eventually
Yeah,
get
so
water should
it
they
was
want.
sized for master plan flows, which is what we currently have.
Yeah.
Which is the tool we use, yeah.
Good, all right, good to know.
Okay. So the next one was South Yuba Canal. So we did finally finish those inspections, out there, both in the tunnel as well as the field inspections, and they did some additional follow-up. So, we expect to have that draft report, and that's for the, evaluation of the facility as well as the capital improvement program.
Mhm.
We expect to have the draft report in February, so we'll probably be bringing it to the board in the end of April, maybe the first one in May, of the overall results, and we'll have the consultants give a presentation on that in terms of what the facility looks like at the moment, and then a capital program that we can start to develop into our CIP to be able to start to access it.
Is this facility considered an upper division waterway?
Meaning it's above Scott Flat or
Yeah.
Rollins?
So this is all feeding the Deer Creek Powerhouse,
Yeah.
right?
But wouldn't it be considered an upper division waterway? It's not below, it's above it's the
Like
feeder
I said,
from,
it's above Scott and it's above Rollins, yeah.
it's above everything. So
Yeah.
are the costs hitting upper division waterways costs?
Well, there's no cost at the moment.
Well, you're talking about the cost for this work,
Yeah.
this
Oh.
consulting work?
Yeah.
This is coming out of
Yeah.
the overall water system budget that's sitting in engineering.
Must be out of engineering.
Engineering budget, which is the water budget.
Yeah, if you're referring to kind of that conversation we had with the, rates committee the other day,
Mhm.
right?
That hydro pays for all facilities above the, reservoirs, the upper division waterways and all that.
Well, there's an element of expense that hydro spends on all the facilities in the upper division waterways, that's correct. Right,
Right,
this
well, we always
particular item might be I'm not sure, might be contracted, within the engineering department, which would then, in our budgetary process, be within the 10 fund, the water fund,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I think it should, I'm thinking it should be in the 50 fund.
Well,
We'll have to look for more,
we'll have to look into that, but,
Is it
I mean,
considered an upper division waterway? That's my,
Yeah.
once we figure out whether it's an upper division waterway or what. then-
yeah,
Because it is
But
upper
again-
division by its location,
but
but
again,
it feeds
it's not how,
everything.
Well, so does
Laura,
the other
it's not how we're differentiating. We don't say that this is upper division, and this is not how we differentiate the systems and how they flow. It just so happens that a lot of the upper division that we spoke about at the rates committee the other day is being paid for by maintenance and operations of the hydro department, right? And so we're
Yeah.
talking about a project that is being assessed. It's a South Yuba Canal. It's basically the artery and the lifeline to Nevada County
Scott Flat.
water, right?
So, yeah, let's define it.
Okay.
That's my question.
Got
Let's define it.
Okay. And we still have not closed escrow on that. This is part of our diligence.
Correct, I don't believe it's officially ours yet,
Yeah, I think that's
Right.
right. All right.
but it.
Because I know water maintenance, there's 2 staff assigned to it full-time from water maintenance.
And they're working closely with PG&E.
PG&E, right.
Correct.
And I'm wondering if it should be
there.
hydro maintenance instead of water maintenance. That's the water division of hydro. that
We'll look
maintains
into
the
that
upper
and
division
talk about
waterways.
Yeah, I don't have that answer for you.
Okay, thanks. Let me know.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one would be on the second page. Excuse me, the backbone extension program, and that's the, East Georgia Lake Wildwood. One of the updates is, that PRV location down at the church, which was identified as part of the overall project needs, the church has gone ahead and accepted that proposal.
Oh, good.
And is gonna be signing those documents to be able to allow that PRV station to be placed at that location.
Is that the Hope Street PRV?
It's one, that close to,
It's off of Ridge. I don't know.
off the ridge, right off of,
Street.
Hope Street comes off of
Is
the,
it from Hope, the first phase is from Hope Street to Star Motel?
yeah,
And so I had a question about this, because
yep.
we had a hang-up on this PRV easement,
Mhm.
and so we said, okay, well, we'll use the funds and we're gonna do another thing, phase 12,
Correct.
E or whatever it was,
Right.
instead of phase 1 first, and then do phase 1 later.
Yep.
But now we're doing both of them?
No, it's just that, because we got hung up on that, we talked about and decided to move on to doing work within our existing system that needed to be upgraded anyway. And so that's what we're working on. But because we had already got out and sent that proposal out, they ultimately agreed to just go ahead and do that. So we're gonna go ahead and accept that easement,
Mhm.
but we're not building that component of it yet.
Component yet, okay.
Right, this is still, the only
Okay.
work being done will be the one within our
The
system
1,200 feet.
on Ridge Road, correct. And that'll be done by maintenance. They'll just be purchasing the materials, and we've got plans for them to be able to get those materials purchased, and then they will be constructing it next year.
Oh, say that one more time?
So maintenance will be doing that work. Our maintenance crews will be building this section of pipeline.
Mhm.
And so we've got plans to them so that they can order the material now,
Mhm.
and then we
Oh,
will,
okay.
yeah. So once we can get the material ordered now, because we have no money in next year's budget for this program.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we'll order the material now, so they'll be able to use the money in this year's budget. They'll build that component next year, and then we'll reconvene with the board in terms of future budgets after that.
Right, because staff time doesn't go to against these budgets.
Correct. Ultimately, it goes against the total project cost.
But not toward the budget.
But not towards the budget.
Yeah. And so on the 1,200, the in-district work that we're doing,
Mhm.
is that, so it was, I don't have my documents with me, but it was a whole phase, it was like phase, I think it was 12 or 12.
I don't remember if that one might have been that or 5A or, was it
Well,
5A?
it was
9? 9. There you go. There was a bunch of phases.
There was a
so
bunch
yeah.
of phases, A's and B's. And so, but my question is, does this construction of this complete that entire phase, or is there still remnants of that other phase? But,
I'm gonna have to go back and look at that to see if, because there was 2 or 3 phases, if I remember right, for our internal system improvements. And I don't
Yeah,
think
they were
this was
very
all related to that, so I think there's still additional in-system improvements that would need to be done.
right, but
This
maybe
was just a
different
piece
phases.
of it, correct.
I wanna know if it completes an entire phase.
Yeah, an entire phase,
An
okay.
entire
I believe it does, but I can confirm that and let you
Okay.
know. Yep, and
I meant to look that up.
and which number that is, which phase number. Okay. Okay, so the next one is the Comey Phase 1. So obviously, we're under construction, we got the bypass operating on October, but, this weather has been very helpful in terms of us getting things done. We've actually, excavation and pipe of the 48-inch that feeds off of our 96 to feed the Phase 2, which stays on the Nevada County side, that pipe has been installed and encased. They're now working on the encasement of the 96 right there at the siphon structure, and the tie-in to the siphon structure. So they're working on that end. At the same time, they're laying pipe from where we left off last year and moving downstream. So right now, we're still ahead of schedule. Our schedule basically talks us being ready to deliver water at the end of February and early March. Contract isn't required until March 30th, and right now we're actually, looks like maybe a little ahead of that. So the excavation has been better than anticipated for most part. So we've been able to rip material and not have to hammer the rock out, which helps quite a bit. So they're averaging 8 to 10 sticks a day, which is excellent. So we are moving forward.
Okay.
Next one, also Sierra Tank. So that hydroliner has been removed. They are now cutting the inside of the berm and building the subbase. They should start bringing in rock, I think, at the end of this week to get the base material down and compacted. and they can form and pour that, concrete bottom. Once they pour the floor, then that site becomes much more weather-friendly, because most all of the columns and the walls get staged off of that foundation after they pour it. So sooner we can get that done before the weather hits, then they'll be in good shape to get that project finished up and back in service by, I think June is when that project's supposed to be able to fill with water.
Tank would be completed.
Correct. Yep.
June 2021, this coming to.
Correct, this coming year. Yep. Hemp Hill. So Hemp Hill, just wanted to give an update in that we're working on the draft EIR. We do have a draft report that we're still reviewing from Northwest Hydraulics Consultant with regards to fish passage options. So we're reviewing those. Once we have any comments, et cetera, get back to them, then we'll finalize that report and get it out onto the website so folks can take a look at that. The reason I wanted to bring it up is this group, which is composed of engineers and other professionals with regards to fish passages, et cetera, have identified that notching or cutting into the existing structure is not recommended, and that we should be going along the edge of it or to the outside of it, which brings up our question, because there's not a lot of structural concrete in the existing dam. It's basically the seal section is what's structural. We've had failures in the past in undermining, et cetera. So they don't recommend doing any notching or cutting into the structure. Instead, going around the edge of it. One of the things we got to talk about and identify is that even if we do that, we're relying on a structure that's less than stellar and has had issues in the past. So we don't want to necessarily build a new structure next to it and then have that structure fail, which makes the fish passage unusable, right? So part of what we need to do in our description of the project is whether we're making improvements, updates, or replacement of that existing structure as part of this project. Whether that gets done all at the same time or not, those are different discussions to have, but we need to identify the impacts that we need to be able to go in there and make either improvements to the structure or replacement of the structure so that we have a passage that will last as long as our new passage that we would put in.
It's an integral project.
Yeah, and also if you replace the structure, you can shrink the footprint in terms of the impacts, because you can then incorporate a fish passage onto the new structure and shrink the area in which you're looking at. So those are additional things that we're looking at, and when we're developing the final project descriptions for all these different components, that's going to be part of what we have to discuss in terms of our project. So just wanted to kind of bring that up and give you a heads up on that.
That's interesting. And who's making that determination, or with the engineers who are working on the DEIR? So
it's a combination, right? So there's a engineering firm which is a sub to E-Corps who is developing the environmental document. They're the ones that have expertise in fish passage as well as dam structures, et cetera. So they're the ones that are doing this draft report that we have now. And then in conjunction with us, in terms of discussions, what makes the most sense on how we move forward with developing this project, right? Whether it's, we need to look at improving the existing structure versus replacing it. Improving it probably is going to be difficult too. But with that comes a whole bunch of other components, right? Which is we're going to have to construct that in the summer when we have irrigation customers. So when now you're talking about having to put diversions in or temporary pile walls, et cetera, so we can continue to deliver water to customers while we build the structure. Those are all just impacts that we have to identify. So that's what we're wanting to do, is make sure we cover all those bases.
They just put a cofferdam just up.
Yeah, you'd have to put a cofferdam of some type, correct. But that, it changes your footprint, it changes the impact in terms of what we're doing to the. So we just want to make sure we identify those and not forget about the fact that everything is based off a structure that has been compromised and is less than stellar.
Compromised.
Yeah, it clearly has been compromised, and it wouldn't meet today's standards. If we were to design it today, it wouldn't look like it does today, right?
I would bet not. So Doug, what is the timing?
So we still have the draft EIR still going to be out by April 1st. And then we'll go through that process. I think we expect to bring it to the board for adoption at I think it was in third quarter
Fall.
of next year, fall of next year.
Oh, wow.
And then once the board has approved and has selected a project and we move forward with that, then of course we'll be working with the other agencies, whatever permitting requirements we'd have to get. There could be some NEPA process that we'll have to do with that. I don't know if it's gonna fall under a general permit that would allow us not to have to go through that. But again, ultimately it depends on what that final project looks like and the impacts and the effort that we have to do. So once the draft or the final document is accepted and we're moving forward with the project, then all agencies are involved and we're moving forward to getting all our final permits and ready to go out to construction, whether that would be the following year, probably depends,
So
big
what happens
portion on
to
how
the
much.
salmon is between now and then? Is there any way you can do some sort of temporary something or other? I don't know, I mean, I'm just...
No, so
No?
it's been as it has been for the last,
Oh, okay.
40 years.
whatever it is, more than that, it
Oh,
is
okay,
exactly.
so there is no,
No, the problem, we've talked briefly about notching and some of those other types of things. The problem is that there's not a lot of water in the ravine, especially in that early time of the year, and so you can't really notch the system down because then we can't get water high enough to be able to get into our canal. In addition, there's no screens, et cetera, currently on that intake either, so that's all part of the things that we're gonna have to deal with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And luckily, we've done a lot of studies in that direct vicinity that they can tap on.
Correct. Absolutely.
That's
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just identifying those potential projects and the impacts associated with the different pieces of it, right? We want to make sure we cover all our bases so that you guys have the tools in which you need to make the decisions, and then we move forward with what we got to do.
Did they start from that 2009 Mike Love design, or did that?
I believe they've received it, but I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know specific. I believe so. I believe E-Corps had all that information.
Hopefully. Okay.
Yeah. And there was a couple of different options, and it's also some adjustments based on the lamprey, which is another potential. I'm not sure it's a listed species yet, but it's something we need to consider. And that makes adjustments in terms of those passages. They don't like sharp edges. They like slower water, like rounded curves, those kinds of things. So we'll have to figure all that stuff out.
Okay.
I'm always surprised at the level of detail that goes on here. You think, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, and it's like digging and digging and digging and, like rounded edges versus sharp edges. Oh my goodness, it's just,
A lot.
It's a lot, and it's fascinating, and I just appreciate how everybody seems to take into account all of those
It is.
nuances.
I think you got a lot of different aspects and different individuals and organizations looking at it from their individual perspective, right? I don't know if you were going to mention, we had a conversation with NIMS on the 20th of November.
Oh.
So we had a conference call with them and talking about the project itself and some of their questions that they had regarding the project itself and what we can do in the interim. They asked that same question: is there anything we could do in the interim to help with passage between now and when the project is actually identified, and adopted by the board? And Doug's answer was exactly what we told him. So, same thing. But their specialty around endangered species of concern, et cetera, right? And so,
Fascinating.
yeah. So, there's certainly a lot of interest in the Auburn Ravine and the Hemphill project. And we're excited to get this draft report done. The draft report will be in addition to a normal CEQA document that'll talk about the environmental effects of the alternatives. And I don't know how much you know about this. I know Director Peters understands, but we'll have a cost estimate of what those projects will actually be as well. So not only do you look from a standpoint of the environmental perspective, but what's a cost perspective as well.
And that'll be a separate piece, right? Because it's outside of the CEQA process.
Yeah, I know those
CEQA
are outside of CEQA.
Yeah, because CEQA doesn't consider cost specific as part of that process.
I do know that.
But for the board to make, a real
Informed
discussion,
decision,
and as well as for the
Spend $10
community to
million?
think about it.
Or are we gonna spend $200,000?
Yeah, that's part of the discussion.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Got it.
And, part of that draft report also includes some cost estimates on the alternatives as well.
When will that be out?
Let's see, we're almost silly season, so probably just right after the first of the year, somewhere in there, yeah. We've got it, we're taking a look at it, making some comments and questions on it, and then they'll finalize that. And once we have it, we'll send it and put it on the website. And then that will be part of, ultimately, that's part of the CEQA document, right? That's a component that.
So base that alternative on.
Yeah, right. So the next one then would be down at community investment, that's 08. On this page, that's Loma Rica Drive, just the update that we took it to APC, last week. And this is to use the money in this year's budget, because we don't have any money in next year's budget for this program, to utilize this year's budget money to build a portion of this project. And so we've got approval or recommendation from the APC, so we're bringing it to the full board tomorrow as an agendized item to have a further discussion per your request, Director Hecht, for the new board members. So Shannon will give an overview of the program in general, so they have a better understanding of what that is, and then talk specifically about this one.
Great, yeah. Well, and just for the record, with the budget, we had said we were done with Table Meadows. We're gonna pause this program until we get our reserves up to reserve status and try and put money, every bit of extra money into reserves to get our reserves built up. And then this came, the project's been changed since it was approved in 2018. But it came straight to the APC and it wasn't even considered in engineering, which typically all of these projects come to engineering first to make sure they make sense. And so it's
it's the same project, just less of it, right? We're not building the full piece, it's not.
And how does it impact the future? How does that impact, is it just a dead end and you can just pick back up later on, or how does?
Well, does that mean the other
people aren't gonna get the opportunity, or?
No, that wouldn't be the case, right? It's just that, just less of this particular project is being built at this time, because the overall project is, I think it was 1.2 or 1.4 million, somewhere in there, right? And so typically we would wait with the money from this year, and then the money's next year, then we'd have enough to build it.
Yeah, because this December 1, 2020, tomorrow's, agenda item.
Yeah.
This project is proposed as approximately 4,363 feet. Well, the initial project was only 3,200 feet. So how could we downsize the project,
I'll have to look
and upsize the length of pipe?
So I'll have to look at, we'll have to talk with Shannon on that one. I think what it was is, the project originally started as a smaller project, and then it grew to a larger project, and now we've cut that overall larger project back down. Shannon would be the one to be able to answer that better, and we'll make sure we can have that discussion with you tomorrow.
Okay.
But I believe that's we have not added to this project as part of what we're requesting to build with the rollover money. That I can tell you. But I think what may have happened is that project may have morphed several times, which they can do. Sometimes you start out this, and then it realizes you only do this. Sometimes you start out this, and then all the neighbors want this, and so it changes back and forth.
And so we did a two-part, just to clarify, we did a two-part process last APC meeting, which the engineering cannot do. The APC meeting is the only budgetary committee that can adjust budget, and so that's what it did. It recommended the rollover from the monies from 2020 into 2021 in order to complete the project that was also at the same time reduced in cost from that 1.4 original to like 915. So that's why,
That's right, it came to APC first.
Right.
That's correct.
Because it was a budgetary item.
It's a financial budgetary, which the engineering committee just is looking at projects and recommending,
Right.
different.
And your budget doesn't include staff time in the total project estimate? You don't include staff time or
Oh, we do, and that's in that,
for construction management? There's no,
so in that,
don't we oversee these with
Yes,
our
correct.
engineering department?
Can we
absolutely.
do that tomorrow, though?
Yeah, let's do it tomorrow.
Okay. It's in that 37,000, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and tomorrow there will be folks who live in the
From
area
the
who will
community.
be on, that, so I want them to have the benefit of the discussion.
Yeah.
They would not have known to
Yeah.
join this.
Fresh.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So the next one then is the last one on that page, Urban and Ag Water Plan. We did have our kickoff meeting, We held that on December 1st. It was after APC, I think, if I remember right. So we're off and running. We're giving them all the information that they need. Chip and his staff.
The consultants?
Yeah,
Who are doing
correct.
it? Okay.
Chip and his staff are putting together that information, historical records, information related to our customer base, et cetera. So all that information, that'll be going into that document. So we've kicked that off. We're moving forward with developing that. I think he's even got a draft into us to regard to the public outreach component of it. That we need to take a look at to start that process in terms of the 2 public meetings for each plan that we have proposed to do, in addition to the required public meeting for each plan.
Public notification should be going out, if not tomorrow, Thursday, to let everybody know that we're moving forward on this activity and to look forward to other meeting notifications.
Yep. And there has been, there was some potential discussion with regards to adjustments to the dates. We're going to hold that we're moving forward with the dates that are currently required. But because of COVID, et cetera, there has been some discussion that the state may extend some of these deadlines. But until that's happening, we're moving forward with the deadlines that are currently required.
Yeah, we should. That's a prudent thing to do.
Yep. So just know that if that's something that comes up, that may adjust our timeline a little bit.
Okay.
And I think that's it for this in terms of anything different than what we had at our last meeting.
On the sediment removal?
Yeah.
We kind of put these all on hold until that study's done. And that's gonna be, you said that's gonna come out.
I should get
Is that
that to the
underwater
conference.
study? Is that what we're talking about?
That's part of it,
Sediment
bathymetry.
study.
Yeah,
I
and
think
part of it was the
bathymetry.
bathymetry. Yeah, exactly. So, I should have that here anytime shortly from internally. Adrian's working on that project, so once he gets the draft report, then he'll give it to me and we'll start to take it apart.
So did this project, the study, take up the money that was in these, or there was money assigned
it was a
in the
portion
budget
of
for all of these?
Correct. It was the 100 the 1.2 million was for sediment for all of these projects, whether we do them all at once or not, right?
And did this study cost 1.2 million?
No, it was we took it, was it APC that approved it, I think?
Yeah, we did. APC
It was under
approved
the
it.
APC. It was like 180
180
or something.
Yeah.
So the
For the
other
consultant, for the
1.1 million,
bathymetry.
does that go back into reserve?
Yeah, what we haven't spent, we did do work on, Loma Rica Reservoir, and as well as,
Yeah, you did.
I'm sorry, what was that? Newtown, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We did a little bit, not a lot, there was a little bit of work done on that, so that would take up some of that money, but a big portion of that money is
We'll
still
go
sitting
back to
there.
reserves.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how the reserves have changed, as we haven't done some of this work. And see how,
Well, we'll see
how we're
tomorrow.
doing.
I mean, I went through it and looked at it, but,
I didn't see it on the reserves. I saw,
there's
On the
a
budget
lot of
tax roll?
information on it. We'll see tomorrow.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the budget tax rules and all that stuff that Marvin gives us.
So Laura, if I may, I had one, thing I wanted to discuss about the PRV replacement.
Yes.
And I spoke with Greg about it. Apparently we've been getting some claims on the PRE replacements because people have old plumbing and we replace our PRV, and then when we turn it back on, something blows up and they lose their water or something. I mean, that's my very unengineering question. Right? I mean, you and I talked about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so then my comment is, we've got these 1, 2, 3, 4 of them scheduled. I don't see there's a budget of 160. So I guess, I would like to just see the discussion that you and I had about a better process of disclosure and notification for the homeowners or the customers who could be affected by that.
So that's completely,
It's
these are large PRV
These are big PRV stations.
Oh,
These are system-wide
Pardon me,
PRV
everyone.
systems. What we
I got it
talk
wrong.
about is individual homeowner, private side of the meter,
Yes.
individual PRVs to homes.
Yeah.
And we're developing an education
Oh, we are.
right
Okay.
now.
Yay.
Just sent it
Okay.
back over to communications and safety, and we're building something as
Oh,
we
good. Okay, great.
Yeah, most of these are all
Okay,
the
then I
big,
misunderstood.
our
what
big
this was.
stations that are underground that we're moving above ground, and and replacing because of age as well as underground versus.
Yeah.
Then I'm good, thank you.
These are, I was gonna say, we shouldn't be throwing a whole bunch of people up and turn these ones on.
Engineering shouldn't be working with
Private homeowner PRV systems.
No, but, see, again, my apologies, but it's because I didn't know what that was
Fair enough.
in relationship to
Fair enough.
our other PRV issues.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Okay, so, now we can go ahead and, do the hydro side of it, and Ian and Nathan, there they are.
Excellent. All right, can you guys hear us over there?
Yep.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and we'll hand it off to Nathan here. Ian Summers, hydraulic manager, and Nathan DeVoe, project manager here. And we'll hand it off to Nathan to walk through the update. And we will do similar to what you did there, Doug, and just hit the highlights of what has changed since the last update.
Yep, and good morning. Feel free to stop me at any time. I'll try to keep you updated on where we're at on our spreadsheet here. But if you have questions on many projects, just let us know. Let's get started on page 1 of the hydro updates under program 10.2. The first line here, the Dutch Flat 2 Powerhouse Balance Plant Project. This was a new balance plant PLC that was installed back in the September and October annual outage period. The update we have for us here is that we are finishing up testing of the new float control system, which is scheduled for the first week of January. From there, assuming the testing goes well, the project will be completed and ready for closeout. Going down to the next project here, line 2, that is the Chicago Park Powerhouse. It's listed as the building replacement, but it's really the cooling water upgrade project. This one, we had a third-party engineering consultant complete a review of the design that we had. And from that review, we're currently making final adjustments to our design. We went to APC last week, who approved a budget rollover of the 2020 budget remaining for the project so that we can start purchasing parts and materials early next year, with a plan to then put the system into service during the annual outage in the fall of 21. Going down now to line 4, this is the Chicago Park Fire Suppression System upgrade project. We have provided our final comments to the system design, which are being completed now, after which the design will be reviewed by a fire protection engineer and approved. Assuming everything goes well with that, we are looking to start construction at the end of next month, which then should have the system in service by the summer of next year.
Nathan? So we're gonna, the access road we're gonna do in January?
No, this was the Chicago Park Fire Suppression.
Fire suppression, okay, okay. Thank you, sorry, I got one line off.
So down to line 7 then, the Dutch Flat 2 Powerhouse Cooling Water System Upgrade Project. This is a new project to this list. It's something that we'll be starting next year. It'll be very similar in scope to what we're doing at Chicago Park Powerhouse, so we'll be updating piping, adding new flow meters, etc. And we're looking to start the design on that in 2021. Going down to line 9, the Rollins Powerhouse Oil Circuit Breaker Replacement Project. This one, we've received a binding cost proposal from the breaker manufacturer, and we're working on contracting and to purchase that breaker from them sometime this month. We have plans to install the breaker next year during the fall annual outage at Rollins Powerhouse. So then that will be put into service as well. Down to line 11, the Scotts Flat Powerhouse Caliso meter replacement project. This meter was installed during the first week of November and is now in service. So the project has been completed, and this project will be removed from future engineering committee updates.
It's always good to see a project completed. We don't get to see them very often.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they just take so long. Yeah.
Down to line 12, the last one on page 1. This is the Rollins Powerhouse Balance of Plant project. This is, I'm sorry, do we have a question there? Okay. For this project, we have contracted with a design consultant to start the design for the new Balance of Plant programmable logic controller. The design will be completed during Q2 of next year and is slated to be installed during the fall annual outage at Rollins Powerhouse. Going on to page 2.
Nathan, can you
Yes.
expand on, so it's balance of power,
Balance
a
of
balance
plant.
of plant design? But can you expand on that, and what is that? What's the balance of plant design?
You can take it if you'd like.
So this is the balance.
Oh, the new balance is the rest of the design?
No, this is the kind of the control system for the plant. This is the computer that does is the brains of the operation out there. So it's monitoring all the systems. It is bringing in the data, all the systems. It'll kick some of the data out to SCADA so we can watch it. It'll record changes in the system. So it'll look at the vibration monitoring system. So we'll be able to trend vibration over the years. Eventually it'll look at the cooling water flows to make sure that they're operating at peak efficiency. It's essentially modernizing a lot of the old control systems out there and putting them in a computer sort of control.
It's really helpful to diagnose issues when we have them out there. One of the features Kian mentioned was we get to add the monitoring to the plant. And so when something does go wrong, it's able to point us to the problem so we know where to look.
Yeah,
And we
so
just
it's essentially command central.
I'm sorry?
It's essentially command central. You know, the brains of it that interacts at all.
It's certainly a piece of it. Yeah, there's still some mechanical and electromechanical equipment out there that absolutely has to work, but this is the brains of the place in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Okay. Terrific. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then now we're on to page 2 of the hydro updates. We're going to still be under program 10.2, the hydro powerhouse improvements, and I'm looking at line 14. We have 2 new projects actually, lines 14 and 15 for the Rollins powerhouse. The first one is for the Rollins powerhouse governor replacement, and then we have the Rollins powerhouse fire suppression system upgrades. These are both new projects to this list, and we are going to begin scoping into next year. So look for future updates from us there. Similarly, we have 2 other projects, lines 16 and 17 below that for the Chicago Park powerhouse. This is for a transformer replacement and a turbine overhaul. Again, these are new projects to this list, so we're going to begin the scoping on each of these projects early next year. And finally, to conclude this program, we have 3 lines at the end, 18, 19, and 20. These are for Deer Creek Powerhouse. We have the Deer Creek Powerhouse control and automation upgrades, the exciter replacement, and the generator breaker replacement. Also, all new projects to this list that are going to be getting off the ground in 2021. These last 3 are contingent on the district actually acquiring the Deer Creek Powerhouse from PG&E next year. So assuming if we do, we'll go forward with starting the design and planning of each of these, and if we don't, we'll postpone them to 2022. Okay, we're going to go down to program 10.3, the hydro dam and water improvements program. I'm going to talk about line 1. This is the Scotts Flat Spillway Repair Project. Last month, the board approved the commissioning of a physical hydraulic model for the Scotts Flat Spillway, and a notice to proceed has been issued to our design consultant since then. From here, we are expecting results of this modeling next April, and then the alternatives report is expected the following June, and we'll from there we will decide on the preferred design alternative for the project and carry the project on from there. Under line 2, we have the Columby and Van Giesen Dam stability analysis upgrades. This one, we have a draft analysis report that's been reviewed by the district, but further evaluation needs to be performed in order to decide on the preferred design alternative. We're expecting those to be coming back to us in February of next year, and then we're going to go ahead and submit those to DSOD and FERC for their review and approval as well. Okay, let's go down to program 10.4 for the Hydro Lower Division waterway improvements. Line 2, the Dutch Flat Canal liner replacement project. This is a new project to this list as well, something that we're going to begin scoping next year. Our plan is to do a condition assessment on the canal in order to determine which segments might need shotcrete repair for future improvements. And then the last project on page 2 under now program 10.5 for the Hydro Upper Division waterway improvements. Line 1 is for the Rucker Creek Spillgate replacement project. This one, we had a site visit last week between Hydro and engineering. This was to discuss the project scope and assess the site conditions that we are anticipating. From here, engineering is going to start discussing the hydro operational needs for this facility so that we can start scoping the project and determining what we need to see in a new gate for this discharge location. So going now to page 3.
I have a question about that one, about the Rucker Creek. Is this radial gate gonna expand any, does it raise anything up? Did we get any more storage from it? Sometimes if you put a radial gate on, you can get
So this is the Rucker Creek spill gates are located on the BS Canal. We currently have a radial gate, but we're actually proposing to replace that with an overshot gate. Reason being, it's much more low maintenance and it's easier to control discharge flows from the BS Canal.
Oh.
In terms of, to answer your question regarding storage, no, it's not going to increase the capacity as this is just a discharge point for high flow in that canal. So I hope that, does that clear that up for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Actually, yeah, that was, yeah, I understand that. Thanks.
All right, on to page 3. We're still under program 10.5. And we're going to look at line 3 now. This is the Wilson Creek Diversion Dam Rehabilitation Project. This is a new project to this list. And at this time, Hydro has requested the engineering assistant preparing a design for a temporary solution that would help us to improve the flow and measurement capabilities at the Wilson Creek Diversion Dam before this winter season. But we're going to be working on a more permanent solution with engineering over the coming years here to really make a full implementation of a permanent fix out there. And finally, line 5 under program 10.5, line 5. We're looking at the Fall Creek Flume Upgrade Project. This is another new one to this list, and we're going to begin scoping that and getting that taken care of in 2021.
I have a question. Is the Fall Creek flume, is that, it's still one of the old wooden ones?
This is actually a linen flume.
It's a steel framed linen flume. So no, it is not, the section that we're working in here is not wooden.
Okay.
You know what linen,
You know, I'm not hearing.
so the linen flume?
Linen,
Yeah.
as
it's
in like
a metal liner.
fabric? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So they're metallized. Oh, all right. And the substructure underneath is also metal, or is it wood?
In the case of in the Fall Creek flume, the structure underneath is steel.
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 Yeah.
Okay.
And the Texas Creek flume, is that the one that was pictured in the pipeline a few months back?
Yes, with the foundation problem underneath one of the footings there, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is going to repair that. That's what this project is to do, is to bolster up the foundation.
For item number 4 there, line number 4 under the 10.5, yeah, the Texas Creek, yes, that project will repair that footing problem.
Good.
Great. Okay, we have one more program here. It is 10.6 hydro-SCADA communication upgrades. These two projects, I'm going to give the update for both of them at the same time as they're a bit related here. We have the new Hydro Office radio tower, line 1. This is a project that went out to bid this fall, and Hydro has actually received contracts and is going to be working on awarding a contract for the project this month. This is something that this contract will be to complete line of sight surveys and preliminary engineering design for a new radio tower at the new Hydro Office location. This actually came out of the project for line 2, which was a study to determine the feasibility of adding fiber optic between some of our remote facilities. That was deemed unfeasible due to that extremely high cost. So now we're looking at a microwave radio solution instead. So in future updates, line 2 is actually going to be moved to closeout and will be removed from the list. And we're going to change our focus now to the project in line 1.
Yeah. Okay.
And that concludes our updates from Hydro this morning. If you have any other questions, yes.
Yeah. We didn't talk about 10-1, I don't think. Did we talk about 10-1 and I just missed it about the hydro field office?
No, we didn't talk about 10-1. There's no updates there since November. We're still looking at the Energy Center program components, which are under development. And we'll be able to finalize and summarize those findings for you once we have that information.
And another quick question is, which of these programs, 10-1, 10-2, these higher level programs are for upper division waterways? You know, Ian, we always say that the hydro does $7.5 million of work for water department. Which of these programs are that?
So you're going to see some of that cost in 10-3. There are some upper division waterways in there. The French Lake, for example. So line item number 3. And then you'll see line item 10-5, which is hydro upper division. Those projects hit upper division waterways as well.
Okay.
There's probably some bleed over in the 10-6 as well in the SCADA upgrades. Because some of that money goes towards SCADA communications to the upper division as well.
For flows, you mean, as opposed to hydro? Isn't it just for the hydro flows for the dam? I mean, for the powerhouse?
There's some of both, yeah. So there's some measuring that happens. There's flow measurement. There's some flow control that ideally could happen.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the directors at this point?
No.
Okay.
Good,
We'll,
thank you, guys.
open it up to the public. I see John Norton's got his hand raised. John, can you go ahead and unmute yourself?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. On the South Yuba Canal, we talked about your report coming out, I think in January, board. And I was wondering, will that report include possible costs and risks associated with canal failure, such as the landslide failure in 2017 and the freak windstorm tree falling on the canal some 10 years ago, and also including risks from fire, forest fire. And it seems to me that those costs should be part of that, brought to the board so they could use that for budgeting and determining that they have adequate reserves to tackle these sorts of emergency costs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Is there any other questions from the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll close item 3 and that'll conclude the engineering committee for today. There's no other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thanks.